You consider restoration a valid school of magic, worthy of study, don't you?
Yes, Colette, Restoration is indeed a valid school of magic, and today we will see if you can beat Skyrim with only using Restoration magic. So what exactly is the Restoration School of Magic? It is your healing school, dedicated to keeping your health topped up without using potions. It has some nice caveats like bringing up wards to block spells, turning away the undead, and, of course, healing yourself and others. So as for the rules of this challenge, I can only use the Restoration School of Magic. No other schools or weapons are allowed. You would think this is going to be some pacifist playthrough, but this is me we are talking about. I will find some way to bypass all the pacifism. For the run, I'm going to be allowing myself the use of the Restore Restoration glitch. I normally ban this glitch in my runs, but since we are playing with the School of Magic named after it, I thought I could loosen rules a little bit. But to balance this out, I will be playing the game on Legendary up through Dragon Rising before I can do the exploit. After that, I'm free to adjust the gameplay difficulty as I see fit. For the sake of the run's other major objectives, it will help out the viewer and runner experience. More later. Oh yeah, no companions for combat reasons except if they're required for the main quest or side quest. If you've watched other Restoration only challenge runs, they bring companions to required fight, but I will find a workaround for that as always. And now for the bonus objectives. Today we'll be doing the Dawnguard DLC. This is because siding with the Dawnguard gives you a spell that does damage to the undead, and it is restoration focused, so healing the undead is on my to-do list. And that just doubled my runtime. I may or may not indulge in other questlines depending on how I feel. And since I'm going to be using restoration a lot, why not go all the way and I'll be doing the Master Restoration quest. And there is one more bonus objective, but we'll get to that later. This is going to be a very long run as it is. With that all the way, let's get healing. Well, there is no healing from this monstrosity. Today I decided to put some effort into the character creator. Whenever I put effort into a creator, I try to make the most hideous atrocity I can. Went with the Argonian this time because his skin, since that's restoration focused. I named her Mercy because I'm going to need all the mercy I can get. I bump up the difficulty to legendary per the main rules, really getting outside my comfort zone this time, and getting out of my axe zone too. For the introduction, I just ran by all the encounters and into the keep. So I went with Rolla for the introduction because I thought that AI versus AI doesn't change between difficulties, but no, I crouched behind a wall for a long while and let the Stormcloaks and Imperials duke it out. After a minute-long stalemate, I got bored, ran into the other room, grabbed the spare key, and just booked it out of Helgen. The game is nice enough to scale damage down for the tutorial, and I'm able to make it through the tutorial relatively unscathed. Well, with an arrow in my butt, but I make it out outside in the same amount of time as a regular run. So for the opener, I do my usual stuff, just with a little more intrigue this time. I grabbed the Mage's Stone to level Restoration a little bit faster, and on my way to Whiterun I decided to let the Stormcloak soldier go. The Imperials were not too happy with the Renegade soldier releasing prisoners. Before heading into Whiterun, I run into the giant that normally the companions knock out before you get there. Well, today they were fighting it out for the ages and I just stood around and watched. Once that distraction was done with, I did my usual opener raiding Khajiit just for loot. Since I'm going to be doing some Dawnguard stuff, I'm going to need all the levels I can get and get as strong as I can. Once I'm happy destroying the local economy and entered Whiterun for the first time, here I decided to partake in vendor buying glitch just so I can get the ball rolling on the Fortified Restoration glitch. I should mention while I'm here that the reason I'm doing the Fortified Restoration glitch is actually because of a scrap video idea I had, where I would level every skill up to 100 as fast as I can, but the idea was shelved for the time being, but I thought I could do a few tricks I learned from that run. Maybe someday I might go back to that idea. Once I had pilfered several lifetimes worth of gold, I went to the potion shop and used my newfound gold to power level alchemy. For the glitch to work properly, you're going to need level 40 alchemy and all the relevant perks you get before level 40. Once I was happy with my levels, I made sure I had health enchantments, indulged in local revelings, and entered Dragon's Reach. I enchanted some stuff so when I get around to the restoration nonsense, I am ready. Once I was all prepared, I began my climb to Bleak Falls Barrow. So Bleak Falls Barrow wasn't too bad, even on Legendary. Sure, I had to be extra mindful of the traps, but heavy armor, health buff on an armor I found, and knowledge on the AI made it a pretty relatively safe jog. Though I will say it was fun watching the bandit who normally died to the trap just shrug it off until he had a sudden heart attack. As for the wounded frostbite spider, I just ignored it, punched Arvel down, and watched as he gets mauled by skeevers. I do appreciate the NPC engagements a little more now. Otherwise, for the rest of the first part, it was just a nice stroll. For the second half of the dungeon, since I can't hit anything for now, I let the blade trap slice up the Draugr. Since they are pretty resilient on this difficulty, they take a few more slices than normal. Once the first room was dealt with, next came the Overlord. I just lured him right to the blade trap. It took a few cycles to get him through, and I do take a few hits, but thankfully I can deal with anything short of a one-shot. As for the trap, I make sure to body block him so he takes more slicing. I grab my claw-marked Dragonstone and return to Whiterun to do my last sane quest. So for Mirmulnir, I thought I could start off the fight by playing tank, but yeah, instead of taking the heat, I just turned into Grilled Lizard. Humbled, the next attempt I spent the remainder of the fight just watching on, only to watch the dragon do a wave dash. So for the fight, almost all the guards that joined the fight bit the dust. It was just Irilith left, and she kept going down. With the last bit of the health bar, it was up to a guard who was too cowardly to leave the watchtower. Yeah, the fight went on for way too long until eventually it goes down for a nap, and it only took 10 minutes. Now you see why I really don't like playing at higher difficulties. Once that nonsense was done, I returned to the Jarl, hear funny voices in my head, and now I can let the game snowball. Just don't look at the date of the upload. I grabbed Lydia so I can do some duplications. First off, I'm going to do a bit of shopping. I'm going to need some Cyrodiilic Spaytails and Aerodilic Longfins, along with some salt piles. I go to a nice corner, drop my minnows in salt, and do an item duplication. I'm going to want about 20 of each, but I wanted to have a little bit more as a buffer. Once I was happy, I made sure I had some Hag-Riven Claws and Spriggan Sap for enchantment potions. With my stuff in hand, I enchanted a hat, gauntlet, rings, and necklace with Fortify Alchemy, and for the exploit first you're going to craft a Fortify Restoration Potion, take off your equipment, drink the potion, then put them back on and craft a new Restoration Potion. You're going to want to have the first two perks of the alchemy and related skills to boost your alchemy skills as much as you can. And eventually things began to snowball out of control. I didn't want to go too crazy. A few 10,000% is enough to go wild with the game without the game crashing on you. The higher you go, the more likely the game will crash. Also, if you craft one of the crazy potions like Giant's Toe, Creep Cluster, and Wheat after a few 10,000%, you can get your skills to level 100 instantly. Yay? Once I was happy with my insanity, I enchanted my clothing with a Fortified Enchantment 10,000% to give me a lot of health, and with a Fortified Restoration perk drank beforehand, the 10,000 health becomes millions, thus nullifying the entire legendary difficulty now enemies just take forever to take down. Also, I buffed Magicka so I can sling spells forever. This is me we're talking about. By the time I'm done with the game's balance is going to be ground to dust, and I think Skyrim has been atomized. With this extreme prep work all done, I decided to take a little detour to Solstheim so I can do a little something. When I arrived in the DLC that is fan service to a DLC, I booked it right to the far southeastern portion of the map to Tel Nithron. Here, Talvis can sell you a tome only if you complete his quest first. After entering the main mushroom, he will accidentally summon an Ash Guardian that needs to be killed. While you can bring a companion along to do the killing for you, instead I do what any reasonable person would do and lure the monster of destruction to a population center. Well, I was going to lure the Guardian to Raven Rock, but some Ash Spawn decided to attack the Guardian. I let them sell their differences until I can claim my reward, and I can buy the tome. Except the tome wasn't here, and I had to level my restoration some more. Well, no better way to power level restoration along with my armor skills like getting bullied by mammoths and giants. Once it was all leveled up, I booked it away from the giants' camp. One giant really didn't want any of my crap and chased me all the way into Whiterun. If this giant were any larger, would be having an Attack on Titan situation on hand. Back in Solstheim, I returned to the big mushrooms and bought my poison rune. Wanting to give it a test run, I tested it out on poor Master Neloth. Besides getting flung around a bit, eventually the poison takes over and Neloth falls to the ground, for good. So, about that other bonus objective. I should put down as a disclaimer at this point as I poisoned a hopeless granny that I did not install any mods for this. Instead, I painstakingly set everyone's essential status to 0. And some characters cannot be set to 0 as they are always essential, so when that happens I just snap them out of existence. An example is children. I may be a madman, but I'm not a monster. And at this point the run's true objective revealed, I dropped the difficulty down. I am merciful and I don't want to watch NPCs choke for minutes at a time as they can't do anything to me anyways. With the mushrooms purified, I returned to Raven Rock and let loose my poison fart clouds all over the place, taking down every last citizen. I also made sure to kill the Jarl and any passerbys. The markets collapsed, I killed the badass looking follower, and I left Raven Rock for the Ravens. Once the town was destroyed, I hit up Skull Village and turned those praying at rocks into skulls. With the threads of fate severed, I persisted in this doomed world and returned to Winterhold, and I had a 2,000 gold bounty on my hands. You know, I think the legal system of this world is out of whack if I just get a relatively small bounty for destroying an entire colony. With all the distractions dealt with, I decided to put my omnicidal rampage on a pause and start working on some quest lines. And now the video is probably going to be over an hour. Believe it or not, before I started recording this run, I did a test annihilation and found out the companions are a weird bunch who cannot be slain until after their quest lines are complete. So I guess that's going to be one more of my very long list of things to do. You would think I should start an omnicidal rampage now, But since I'm not playing with mods, I will have to work around some of the characters' true essential status and disable them. And I want to do as much bloodshed as I can, so we're going to tackle on the Companions, Civil War, and Dark Brotherhood. Welcome to the real run. Well, there's no better time to start on the bonus objectives like right now, so I head down to Whiterun and join the Companions. I head out into the courtyard to do a test fire against Vilcus. Well, after some initiation, ignoring a few punches here and there, I'm allowed to join in on the Companions. A few raiding quests and I can join in on their first major obstacle, locating anti-elven shards. A quick jog to the northwest of Whiterun, I enter Dustman's Cairn. Problem for this dungeon is that I only have poison magic, and Draugr are immune to poison, so that is a problem. And the enemies are pretty strong taking down my ally with these, so I guess I'm going to have to use my restoration the intended way and pocket heal Farkas until I get caged in and my ally reveals his persona. Well, with the introduction to the Anti-Furry Coalition out of the way, I use my Poison Rune to choke out the Silver Hand, which works out well as it does until Farkas gets caught up a few times. Eventually it is back to Draugr, and me back to being a pocket medic. By the end of the place it is a horde fight against a lot of Draugr, so I stood behind my companion until he slowly cleared out the room. Once the escape was revealed, I made my grand exit and returned back to the Companions to do more raiding quests. Yay, the Skyrim specialty. After that was done, I was allowed to join the Inner Circle. Mind you, all I did was stick an IV into a dog. Since I was having some trouble with the undead and I know the questline ends with a lot more undead, and it is the primary side objective, I decided to start the Dawnguard DLC. I stopped by Riften first, and since I was in the neighborhood, I gave the local orphanage a nice welcome. I was intending to just kill Grella and her assistant, but seems my poison cloud must have hit a child as well, as when I did, the entire city guard entered the house and started to attack me. Well, I jumped on a bed and cleared out the entire city guard, and I erased the children from the game too. Not wanting to hang out further, I still need the city to be alive for when I get around to the main story. I just exited the city. On my way to the Dawnguard castle, I came across a dragon and ran into a familiar problem yet even worse. Ruins don't activate for dragons unless they are on top of them, and I can't place it underneath them to poison them. Yay, it's the Ebony Mail all over again. But unlike the Ebony Mail, dragons are also immune to the effects of poison runes. So that's going to make Alduin a whole lot harder. While I killed the local bounty hunter, I entered the Dawnguard castle. Seems like word must have gotten to them because instead of welcoming a new ally, they just all attacked me. Well, I made it out, someone fell to their death, and yeah, looks like I'm going to have to put that idea on hold until the hold calms down. So to burn off some time, I decided to return to the Companions and continue the questline. After a quick raiding quest, I entered the Underforge to grow hair on my scales. Inside I got some archery training from a wolf because the idea just amuses me. I just hid in the corner to not begin my rampage early. I have to poison the well, not use Nazim as a scratching post. Back outside, I hit up the nearby keep and fillet the werewolf hunters. The dungeon went by pretty easily. Some silver hand fell in one shots, others took a few, but I made sure there were no survivors. At the end of the dungeon, there was the leader and a dead skewer. So now it looks like there's going to be a total extermination of the silver hand, and the location Ayla sent me was in the middle of nowhere. So I decided to put the companion questline on pause for now. Get it? Pause. Now that it has been a hot minute, I return to Fort Dawnguard, do a long walk, and I can finally be accepted into the Vampire Hunters. After the opening dialogue and rewards for being a premium customer, I was given my first task to clear out a vampire lair. I knew exactly where it was. I normally hit it up when I grabbed the Lordstone. A quick hike through the tundra with a side of giant intoxication, I begin this dungeon. So yeah, vampires are also immune to poison, so I have to play things smart until I can find a way to do damage. So for the first part, I just sprint my way through everyone until I enter the second portion of the dungeon. In order to proceed with the quest, I have to dispose of the vampires, which I cannot harm, which is also a tricky situation, but I have a plan as always. I kill the thralls since I can kill them, and for the rest of the vampires, I group them all up, brought them to the first rooms that you can close the door on, close the door and quickly escape. Eventually I get them all caught in there and I can proceed to get my tendons torn on my hands. I've solved some puzzles by following the shadow fires until I meet the character who has the most art and mod dedications online. Most very depraved, because you people are sick! With Serana freed, I make my grand escape from the dungeon until I'm out in the sun, and now I am tasked with taking Serana back to her parents' house. On my way to Castle Volknar, I had my game crash on me randomly. Ain't that swell? Second, going to do a slight detour until eventually I make it to the docks. Inside the castle, I meet Serana's father, who is also a vampire lord. He rips off his clothes to reveal his dad bod. I immediately call the FBI on him and he kicks me out of the house. Back at Fort Dawnguard, the place is getting attacked, so I'm back to my medic duty. After talking to Isran, I am now tasked with finding a couple NPCs who will help me in more ways than one. So my first stop is going to be Treva's Watch since I have 3 objectives in the same area, so it's time to take them all out. Before I could get close, I get stopped by some guards, and so I don't have everyone jumping down my throat when I get back to the Dawnguard Fortress, I just pay the fine and went on my merry way. When I got to Treva's Watch, normally you have to go through the back entrance, through some tunnels, and then lower the gate. Yeah, instead you could literally hop over the wall. Amazing defenses. Anyways, I just kill everyone inside including the Silver Hands leader so I can advance to the next part of the companion's questline. Further up the road, close to Iverstead, I meet Gunmar, who is hunting bears in the local cave. Yeah, you found a lot of bears. 3, in fact, inside. They will all go down with little fuss and recruit Gunmar to our cause when it'll be mostly me and Serana doing all the heavy work, but oh well. Since Iverstead is literally over the hill, I decided to climb up to High Hrothgar now. There is still the beat Skyrim part. Before climbing up, there was a troll just vibing. Grillith tried to attack, but he gets swatted down with ease. As for the rest of the mountain, I just sifted up, killing the 2 NPCs here. Yeah, I'm not on my rampage part yet, but I do get a few kills here and there. Oh yeah, the frost troll fell and broke his ankles and died. Inside High Hrothgar, finally, normally in my script I'm here on page 3, not page 6, I do my vocal training, hiss at breakneck speed, which I'll be using for a small glitch later that will help out in Traversal, and I can put off the main story again for a long time. And I mean, long. I begin hiking to the next character who is a far off location, so I begin the long hike. In Dragon's Bridge, which I'll be returning to soon, I run into the cultists who probably want revenge for me wiping out the island that came to greet me. I lay down a trap, and when they were done blabbering, immediately get poisoned and died in unison. Don't mess with the true god of death, Morthal. Anyways, I hike my way to the next character for the Dawnguard. I found that if you do a whirlwind sprint, wait in the animation, then spam the power button, you can whip by the map in a straight line. I thought this was an Usagraf thing, not a main outside thing. Along the way I run into an assassin who probably wants my head for my annihilation tendencies. I talk to Serene, who needs some Dwemer cogs. Apparently she is not a searcher as it was literally nearby on the riverbank. And this is the hope for Skyrim. We are so doomed. I made sure to grab Darkfall Cave. I was oblivious at the time, but I will return to this cave when I progress the Dawnguard further. Yay? Back at the fort I run into Isran, who is very vampire paranoid and tries to fry us. After introductions are done, I talk to Serene and grab the Sunfire spell, which is effective against the undead, who are normally immune to poison, and is also restoration focused. Hooray! So I can proceed through the Dawnguard quest worry-free. I talk to Serana and begin the process of finding an Elder Scrolls, of which we need 3, when this is supposed to be the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. So for the next quest, you're supposed to go to the inns across Skyrim to see where the Moss Priests are. Yeah, even though I've only done the Dawnguard questline once, I knew to look south of Dragon's Bridge, and lo and behold, it's a vampire crypt. I nuked the vampires inside with the power of the sun and freed the Moth Priest. Once that was done, I returned to the castle, had the priest read a scroll. Next up we need 2 more scrolls, so I guess time for a side story mission. I decided to head to Winterhold now to grab the Dragon Scroll, and I had a hell of a time trying to get the Gatekeep to have me use Healing Hands instead of blasphemous other schools of magic. Eventually I make it inside, and I converse with fellow Restoration School enjoyer. I bought some Restoration spells to add to my repertoire, then headed out. Since I have like a million health, I just jumped down. I am basically a god at this point. I converse with Septimus, seems I'm going to need to do his quest as I cannot kill him. I hope Hermes doesn't kill me. As for Aftan, since this is familiar territory for me at this point, I just run through the place. Restoration does not work on machinery, so instead of struggling in vain with both poison and sun, I just sprinted right on through the place. For the big room, I didn't even need to become ethereal. I'm a master over gravity. At least the fallen are poisonable. I took in the sights of Blackreach, pressed buttons, grabbed the second of 3 Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim Special Edition, and remembered to grab the Lexicon for once. I always forget to grab the Lexicon. Now we need a 3rd Elder Scroll. So for the last Elder Scroll, it is located in the basement of the FBI's most wanted criminal, so time to brave the Skelly Boys. The Sunfire is putting in a lot of work, needing to remember to use poison against gargoyles and fire against skeletons. The basements are huge, windy, and I get turned around quite a few times. In the courtyard, I somewhat remember where to find all the panels of the moon, and I can proceed deeper into the dungeons. After a lot of struggling, I make it to a dead end, forgetting that you need to turn a candlestick. I haven't done this DLC in 4 years, okay? So for entering the Soul Cairn, I would need to become either soul trapped and lose a bit of my abilities, or become a vampire. I decided to become a lizard wolf bat and continue to confuse the bloodlines. Why would I become a vampire? Well, for one, I'm an agent of death, and for 2, necromage. Plus, I haven't played with vampirism much, so I guess it would be fun time to feed every so often. However, this would end up coming to bite me in the arse later. Inside the Soul Cairn, it is just a big empty map full of nothingness except for a purple filter. So every AAA open world game got it. The big gimmick of this long place is to cross over to the other side and talk to Serana's mother who hates the perverted father. After talking to her, we need to destroy 3 Bone Guardians. Despite their Dragonbone armor, they really can't do much to the sun. Back at Valencia, she lets me into the courtyard and commences a battle against a dragon. Despite being an undead dragon, my sun spells don't actually work because it's not quite dead, so I let the other vampires do most of the work while I take out the axe. Eventually when the dragon lands on the balcony, I can poison underneath them, which does nothing, but oh well. Eventually Durnavir goes down, I grab the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, which is already destroyed, and exited the Soul Cairn. I learned the Moth Priest is blinded, so I'm going to have to read the sheets of toilet paper for myself. Outside of Falkreath, I am immediately met by some vampires, so I brought out the power of the sun, under the sun. Remember, I'm an immortal god of death and destruction. They just suck. Inside the glade, I debark a fancy tree and get tickled by a lot of moths until I'm told to stand in the middle of the light and apply the legendary 3-ply sheet of paper. After this, I am told the location of where Ariel's bow is, and more vampires attack, but that's just a normal day. Before heading into a dungeon 3 times the length of Blackreach, I remembered to talk to Septimus. When I went to leave, I met Hermes.
Who talks so slow you have to watch at double speed to follow along.
After that, I fed on the court wizard, who I drained a lot during the run. He is easy to feed, okay? After that, I traveled back to Darkfall Cave and started that super long dungeon. So for the first part of the dungeon, I just ran along the linear section until I jumped into the river and followed another long linear pathway until I met with a snow elf, thankfully not on my to bleed list. I listened to his speech and start the next part of the dungeon. Inside the next portion of the cave, I kill a Fulmer and harvest its blood for later for the Septimus quest. After that, it was more walking oversized dungeons until I meet alternate colored saber cats. I am almost free. More walking and I make it outside. Inside the Forgotten Vale, I missed the portal at the start, so I had to backtrack a little bit. You have to grab the 5 locations on the giant map with no good local map and grab water from altars. Besides the giant oversized map part, now I remember why I hated this quest. I just booked it right to the required destinations, ignoring the side content because honestly I couldn't be bothered. For the final objective, I just walked over the mountain to get to it. Even though there is probably a side path somewhere you can take, oh well. At least the Fulmer camp is pretty cool. Eventually I get the final altar and I can enter the totally not Game of Thrones ripoff. The dungeon is pretty short all things considered, and eventually I'm met with a snow elf sitting in a menacing way and fight a lot of residents of Vault 111. They were all weak to poison thankfully, except for the Frost Atronach who needed some special maneuvering, and by that I mean letting the ceiling collapse in on it and having Verthur throw a rock to kill it. I was Serana do to Verthur what most Serana Sims want her to do to them. For phase 2 of the fight, I just shoved energy balls where the sun normally doesn't shine until he's dead. That sounded wrong. So after I grab Ariel's bow, the side objective of killing everyone has failed. Well, it failed when I never installed a mod to kill everyone to begin with, but I'm not smart enough to download mods. Instead, bashed my head in the wrong way. The reason it failed is because I cannot hit Gelibor. Sunballing, punching, nothing works. Not even disabling works since I guess he is essential in another way. I guess he's just a ghostly apparition. Once I was freed from that mess, Karma would immediately catch up to me. Izarn won't talk to me because I became a vampire, even though I have the hard counter to vampirism and ready to storm the castle. And apparently Delphine and Azim are no longer my bottom 5 most hated Skyrim characters. Well, it seems I'm going to have to lose my Necromage perks. After that, I left the castle to travel to the worst town in the game to appease the worst character. As for Morthal, besides having a dragon attack and hired thugs, I had to wait until late night to start my cure for vampirism. For that, I'm going to need a black soul gem filled. So, my options are very limited, but I have the power of the Wikipedia for that, I think. The first location I could do is Serpent's Bluff Redbout. At least it's close to a few locations for later quests and slaughters, but inside I didn't find the black soul gem, so I guess next stop is Iverstead. Inside the burrow here, it is supposed to be haunted by a ghost. Nah, it was just someone wanting to be a ghost, so I returned them to the afterlife. It took a moment to find the book. In fact, I had to leave the dungeon to start the quest proper to come back to finish the quest so I can find the book on the floor. Through the next part of the burrow is more exploring just with a lot of traps. Right before the end of the first section, I found the black soul gem required, I think. In the final section is just a lot of enemies, but since I had the power of the sun, I could just destroy the room with relative ease and gain my prize. A useless word wall. Well, I didn't think I could proceed with the quest further for curing my vampirism, but it turns out when I returned to the wizard to see if I had some on hand, he let me finish the quest. I sat in the circle, lost my Necromage perks, and finished up with that quest. Since I was in the area, I just cleared out Ustengrav. There really wasn't much of a note here for Usengrov, the main things being getting more blood for Septimus, falling to my death safely to become ethereal, which at this point is useless to me. I do the sprint gates as intended, grab a knot horn, then left the dungeon. This visit only took a couple of minutes all things considered, but at this point I am speed and death. I return to the Dawnguard Castle, restrain myself from killing Isran, and can begin the final raid on the Castle Volknar. For the FBI raid, all the vampires came out to play when I left. Problem, they're all in the sun, and if I weren't weapon restricted, I could have shot an arrow at the sun and nuked them all. Instead, I partake in the reason I went with Dawnguard DLC all the way, finally killing everyone here. Every vampire saluted the sun and didn't stop until everyone was dead. With them all done, I entered the cathedral to face down Harkron. The fight with Harkron wasn't too bad, just annoying with him teleporting all around the room. It wasn't long and he erected a barrier around himself to heal. I couldn't do anything with the barrier because lol no bow usage, so I had to kill the enemies as they came in. Eventually came his third and final cycle. I threw more balls at him until he turned into a pile of ash, finishing the DLC and wiping him off the FBI's most wanted list. I celebrated the occasion by killing Isran as soon as he came into the room. This is for making me lose Necromage. Prick. And for those who are probably typing in the comments I could have become a vampire again from Serana, you see... Well, maybe someday I might beat Skyrim as a vampire lord, but not today. With the castle disposed of, I guess next course of action is to wipe the Dawnguard off the map. Yep, that seems good. So with the Dawnguard DLC all done at last, time to get back to the companions. Returning to the companions, next stop on the questline is a radiant location in the middle of nowhere, so begins a long walk there. On my way, I put a wandering mage to sleep, along with killing an innocent fisherman. Inside the random cave was a generic cave filled with Silverhand. That just means time to flex my poison muscles. Except the leader was in Dragonbone armor. If only that meant something. With my duties done, I return to Whiterun and get tasked with a witch hunt. On my way to the Glamora witches, I ran into the microtransaction house, which I promptly claim as my own. Oh yeah, I put on some fortified restoration potions and put on an amulet of Talos so I can infinitely sprint. Yay! As for the cavern, the optional objective involves killing every witch here, so that is what I do. At this point I hit 100 restoration, so at some point I should get around doing the master restoration quest. Once I have everyone's head somewhere in my pockets, I return to Whiterun to find that Kodlak is dead. Guess time to add to my kill count. For the next fort mission I was joined with Vilcus, I think. I get the two mixed up, but basically it was run until everyone was dead. Along the way I released the werewolf, but I think it wanted to attack me sadly. It slaps Vilcus so hard I think he almost died if it weren't for the essential status. More gas shed and the Wuthrad shards are ours once again. Back in Whiterun, it was a sad funeral as we watched the leader get burned Vader style. A random fetch quest, then taking her leave to the final quest of the companions. Back at the College of Winterhold, I jump off the bridge again and swam to the tomb of Iskumar and started that dungeon. The dungeon itself was weird for the playthrough because half the ghosts were weak to poison and the other half I had to use Sunfire for, but eventually the ghosts were put back to sleep. As for the final room, I talked to Kodlak's ghost and I had to kill a super easy wolf. Like, it was honestly pathetically easy, but Ayla gets caught in the crossfire. Once Kodlak finishes his speeches and the quest finishes, Ayla dies. Imagine being so pathetic you die frame 1 after gaining mortality. While the rest of the companions already headed back to leave poor Ayla behind in her eternal grave, guess I'm not becoming a furry again. With that business all done, 2 quest lines down and now we start the next 2. I make a pit stop in Windhelm to tell Aventus Grelot is dead and his friends are banished to an alternate dimension. Also I joined the Civil War and going with the Stormcloaks this time. Why? Because I want to commit more war crimes. With my business done in town, I left Windhelm and went to Kynesgrove. I let the person tell me the news the town is on fire, then did away with her. As for Salicanir, at this point I find out that dragons are actually immune to poison, which means that I cannot harm dragons, so I need companions to do all the dirty work. So I just play Pocket Mercy and heal Delphine, my required companion for this fight, so she can do all my dirty work. After enough bashing, Delphine finally comes out on top and we can get the ball rolling on the ball. Next up on my misadventure, I break my ankles once again from the College of Winterhold and ignoring doing the college quest. I swim to the Serpent Stone so I can deal with the Frostbite. Thankfully, it is not of my concern and it goes down with relative ease. With my business concluded, I get sworn into the Stormcloaks and I can go adventure to some tomb to grab some uncomfortable headwear. This time with a bear companion. So with a lot of Stormcloak companions, the adventure to get the Jagged Crown was pretty easy. I just spammed my poison runes on the poor Imperial scum until they all kneeled over. At one point I might have gotten turned around, but meh. Eventually the party makes it to the end where we are met with a lot of Dragger Death Lords. It has been a little bit, but my great balls of fire are enough to sunbleach them out. With the crown in my possession, I decide to keep it warm and time to hit up the embassy, but first I take a nap. For the initiation to the Dark Brotherhood, instead of killing Astrid, I instead blasted all 3 victims at once to get the key out of the shed, inserting our final quest line. Yeah, we end up doing 4.5 quest lines total for the run, but oh well. More screen time and more burnout time for me. Once that was done, I'd do my quick story beats and then head into the embassy. For Maliborn, normally I dump my entire load onto him so I can go on my way, but I was a little too kleptomaniac this run and he can't carry everything, so I had to reload a save and instead give him the bare essentials. For the embassy, I had to reset the restoration glitch, but I was smart enough and brought a few potions along, and then I just started to blast my way through the embassy. Every smug little high elf felt the power of the healing power of death, and all fell with relative ease. Even the prisoner gets the poison treatment as extra torture. I just sat by the entrance and watched as the group with the captured Melbourne walk in, get poisoned, and all die. Was this a giant elaborate ploy just so I can get Bosmer blood so I can finish Septimus' quest? Yes, but nevertheless the quest is done. Next up in this adventure is a little spot of war crimes, so I handed Balgruuf an axe of declaration of war, then started the Battle of Whiterun. Along the way I just slaughtered every Imperial and guard I came across. I didn't feel like raiding homes this time, that won't be until later. I entered the Dragon's Reach, killed the guards, and poisoned the Jarl until he stood down and resigned from his post. While watching politics I had a nice little icebreaker.
There's been another dragon attack. You of all people should know that.
With the battle for Whiterun concluded, I decided it would be a nice time to take care of some side activities. First on my to-do list was go to Septimus Signus so I don't forget. Again. I gave him the blood and he entered the chamber. Septimus was turned to dust upon learning from the ethereal realm he has R34 artwork. I get my book, talk to hentai,
Come, my champion.
read the pretty picture book, then left. What the frick am I writing? Since I nearly forgot, my next objective is going to be going for the Master Restoration side quest, since that is one of my way too many bonus objectives. One small problem though, as I was searching for Colette. Master Restoration only becomes available once you've completed half of the College of Winterhold quest line, so I guess we're gonna have to do that. Yay. Also, Frost Dragon got bullied. First things first, I get acquainted with the college layout even though I have already been wandering around for a while. I put up a ward for told you to not violate the run's rules even though wards are pretty niche. Once I'm accepted into the college properly, the next part of the questline is Starthal. On my way, a group of bandits got bullied. Inside the old important site to Elder Scrolls lore, it was a straight shot more or less until I get the magical amulet and get sealed inside. I blasted the wall with the power of healing and I can proceed on with the place. I get a vision from a monk, then proceed to test my brain with a pillar puzzle and somehow get on my first try. At the end, I'm met with an invincible Draugr until Tolfdir played with the oversized ball, then I blasted the named Draugr back into the afterlife. On my way to start the next quest, I met with a skeletal dragon emerging from the ground. 4 quests too early, my friend. The next quest involves going to an old fort to get some books. The fort itself was nothing too much to write home about. I was about to smooth talk my way out of the necromancer ritual, but since she had the key, I just killed her anyways and get my books I never read. The final part of my college misadventures is going to talk to the Augur, which is the prerequisite to Master Restoration. The dungeon is super, and I mean super quick. Fastest way to the Augur is right under the Hall of Continents. Inside here I talk to a gaseous form of slow talking, telling me to go seek a staff. Since staffs are not part of the rule set, I abandon the questline altogether. With that all done, now I can finally talk to Colette and begin Master Restoration training. Here the Augur tasked me with a minute of punishment in the nude without my uber armor. Wasn't too bad and I emerged as the Master Restoration. With that all done, I don't have to go back to Winterhold until I need to do my spring cleaning. With that detour all done, time to get back on track with the Civil War. First on my missions of liberty is to liberate the Falkreath camp. They advise you to clear the fort out using a stealthy approach. This is me we're talking about. I'm an omnicidal mad god of destruction and death, so I just go through the fort killing everyone I see through the front entrance. So I have a problem with my rampage. Runes don't activate for those of the same faction as you, so sadly I can't nuke my allies with rune spells, so I have to rat my way out later in the run for the purification. Anyways, fort is ours and the allies will be killed soon enough. Next up for the Civil War is to go to the Reach camp, which is far removed from everywhere I have been so far, so that was a fun hike. With my commands, I head into Markarth. In the city, I wanted to buy some jewelry, but some killer decided to kill a merchant, so that was pretty rude. Anyways, I blackmail the Jarl's steward, get some information on a silver supply drop. With the info, I get the raiding group and wipe out the guards. After that was done, next stop was the fort. Same as usual, but the fun stuff came after the fight. You see, I was near a dragon den and I saw it in the background, so I paid it a visit. Since I cannot kill dragons, I decided to lead it to some settlements. The first settlement was an Imperial camp who were more interested in the Harbinger of Death than some dragon. And they all died. Next up was Rorikstead. There the guards fell pretty quickly and I had to lead the dragon to a giant's camp just to get rid of it. Next up for the Imperial Wartime is looking for some Imperial courier and forging some letters. I just found him strolling down the road of Dragon's Bridge, and I made sure he delivered his final package to the afterlife. I gave the info to a legate in Morthal, then after that clear out the fort. Just more bodies to my count. With those all done, time to start the final hold. So for the final hold, the Stormcloak Dragon camp was met by a Frost Dragon. It ignored me and attacked the camp. I paid it no mind, and as soon as I could fast travel, I traveled to the final fort. Here it was the same as always for the other fort attacks, kill everyone until the game said stop, then keep going. When I got back, the dragon was still attacking, but eventually it went down. When I went to go relay the information, Gonar was a goner. Like I couldn't find him at all. I hoped the game bugged out and would eventually respawn, since I had not set his essential status to 0 yet. While the game was trying to figure out what the hell was going on, I decided to resume the main story. Inside Riften, since I needed to clear out the Thieves Guild eventually, I joined the Thieves Guild by picking a lock poorly, planting a ring, and I could get into the guild. On my way to the Ragged Flagon, I killed all the beggars down there, and I got my next mission from Brynjolf. Before heading out, I decided to pay Esbern a visit, and killing all his cellmates. I make my escape, carving through the Thelmore, and I could breathe some fresh air. Before heading back to Riverwood, I made a stop to bully the storekeeps of Riften, stealing a statue of Bella and a storekeep's gold since he didn't want to pay. I get sworn into the guild, and now I can kill off the guild whenever I get around to it. With Riften all done for now, I returned to the Solitude camp, and the game decided to work, so now it is time to finish the Civil War. I watched Ulfric give a yelling speech, then fought my way through the city. I just made sure to kill every soldier I saw on the way to Castle Dower. It is a quick jog, all things considered. Inside Castle Dower, I laid down a poison trap so when the legate was done talking, she would eat a mouthful of poison. I let Ulfric kill a general. With that all done, I played with the skull and watched Ulfric give a speech. When I need to kill the allied units, I summoned forth a couple of skeevers just so my runes would actually work. The runes did their work, and Ulfric and Galmar were dead. I made sure to throw Ulfric in the fire. With that work all done and Skyrim's political system is thrown into chaos, time to proceed with the main story. I made a pit stop in Riverwood before making my way to Skyhaven Temple. On my way we were stopped by an ancient dragon. That just means that we had some additional help wiping all the Karspire off the map. Inside the dungeon proper, the Forsworn were foregone, I solved a few puzzles, dropped my lizard, dragon, wolf, bat, everyone else's blood on the seal. Surprisingly it still worked, and I could finish my business with Delphine. So with that all done, I think now is a good time to get the main story to its final part. I do the initiation from the Greybeards, get the clear skies shout from textures that did not want to spawn, and begin my climb up to the summit. I grabbed one of the several Elder Scrolls in my pocket, pull it out, watch future targets take down Alduin, then start the Alduin fight. Alduin basically played out a bit like the Ebony Mail run, where instead of me attacking, I just let party snacks and the dragon's own meteors backfire. Though parts of the fight I was planning on using the medical assistance to Parthenax so he didn't end up falling down the mountain like last time, but throughout the entire fight, Alduin was entirely focused on me. Thanks to the not evilest dragon in the room focusing on the evilest wizard, the fight only went on for 6 minutes. Trust me, I've had Alduin take up to 30 minutes before, but then again at this point this run was turning into all power scaling. Since I have already killed both military leaders in Skyrim, I didn't have to listen to a pointless 15-minute argument. I could talk to Vignar Grainmane not in Dragon's Reach, talk to Party Snacks again to get my Uber driver's contact information, get gold from an old man in his sleep, called my Uber driver, then abandon him for a long part of the run. I just want everyone in their position so I can freely kill everyone. With now 4 of the 5 quest lines done for the run, now is a good time to start the final quest line. Back in Falkreath, since I forgot to get my landmark, I get initiated into the Dark Brotherhood instead of Instant Purification, and get my first set of targets. At this point, I can start killing freely. And my first target is in Dawnstar. I get my Poison Rune, then I kill Velatid. And since I don't need Dawnstar for anything, it can be my second settlement off the map. I did have to skeever summon to kill the guards, but otherwise I just went through the mines killing everyone here. Everyone's house to pluck them away, killed Jarl Skald in his sleep, and the shopkeepers too. Even wiped out the Khajiit caravans. Well, with Dawnstar now dusk, my next stop on my Carnage Rampage as the Harbinger of Death is at an old lumber mill. On my way I got wisdom from Maik the Dyer. At the mill there was no guards and I gave no mercy and everyone died. Oh yeah, my target. As for Ivarstead, the town became Ivarstead. Funnily enough, in this rampage, my main target was the last person I killed. Yay? Back at the Sanctuary, I get my next contract, and that is to talk to someone in Markarth. Here, I meet my client who wants, I think, her ex or something murdered, along with a person in Winterhold. So I went there and killed Nilsine, and killed off a few NPCs while I was here. I didn't fully purify the town, but I did ravage the market stalls. Oh yeah, I was supposed to raid one more ruin. I just went through the entrance and killed my target since I don't fancy fighting Centurions since I have no way to deal damage to them. With all that stuff done and about a 50,000 bounty on my head, I returned to the sanctuary, got very intimate with the course, and learned I'm the listener. And I enjoyed silencing everyone. Instead of a big target, I get a couple more hits, so more settlement annihilation. My next target was to the north at Half Moon Mill. Here I meet a lovely vampire couple who I used my barely used lately sun muscles on. Next up on my bloody rampage is a larger settlement, Morthal. I fired on the first person I saw and everyone in town congregated to my position and promptly died. Since the Jarl's house was right there, Arald's frozen heart became on ice forever, and after this I went through as usual going to everyone's houses and killing them. Oh yeah, I sang the orc the sound of silence. Thankfully Morthal is a pretty small city, and before long the vampires would have to find a new blood source. With more blood on my hands, I return to the sanctuary and get the ball rolling on my next contract, this time from Amon. On my way there I meet an old orc, didn't last long. Inside Vollenroot, the dungeon not the weapon, I totally missed the entrance to Moltriere and instead did the entire dungeon. Thankfully it's a pretty short dungeon all things considered, just get 2 weapons from each branch, then go into the central chamber. On my way I saw an ice atronach get shatter. The boss itself was pretty straightforward. I thought it was a dragon priest, but I guess not. With that all done, I go down the correct branch, get my target. I'm going to kill an emperor! I relay the good news to Astrid, and next up I deliver the amulet not of the kings to Delvin, and he gives me a nice line of credit. Nice, hopefully there's some interest. Next up I get to attend a wedding. Hopefully the dress is a nice morning black. Here I wait on top of the rooftop because I want to complete the side objective, because that is what all good assassins do. Once Vittoria starts, I just started blasting both at Vittoria and the crowd. Didn't know the Argonian has joined the mission. Well, I didn't fancy killing the lizard right now, so I just went quietly, stole my loot back, and returned to Astrid. Next up for my missions, I need to kill Gaius Maro in a city. I could kill him in Dragon's Bridge, but where's the fun in that? I slowly stalked Gaius around Skyrim, and I mean slowly. Followed him towards Riften, then finally killed him in Windhelm. Found him in the streets, and I immediately blasted him as soon as he came in, and planted the evidence in plain sight of everyone, because video game logic. Also, someone wanted to start a brawl with me. I used my magic fist of gas to win the fight. With that mission done, we are getting close to the grand finale, but first Cicero decides to break down of Vizara, and now we need to put the Jester down for a nap. I travel back to Dawnstar, which was looking very empty, and the thunderclaps in the background added to the atmosphere. As for the sanctuary, it was a straight shot to Cicero. Well, I did get turned around a couple times. As for Cicero, he had a lot of get up and go. I eventually used the skeever trick to get rid of him, even toss him off the bridge. With that all done, next step is to become Le Gourmet. Inside Markarth, I talked to Anton about where the gourmet is. Once I had my information, I decided Markarth is done for, and I began my purification of the town, going through killing all the NPCs starting from the chef to the local steward, the priest, and everyone else in the keep. I also made sure to kill the new Thane Thongvir. Turns out blood is red, not silver. Out in the main city proper, I made one big circle around everything, starting at the Hag's Cure. Cure the Hag alright. Wiped out the mines also, killing those in there, and I think the prisoners will probably starve. Probably. The Warrens were next, and it was somewhat bleak killing everyone down here in the slums, but honestly they could use better lighting. The Sanctum of Dibella became die, and the treasury had new blood notes, and the nose no longer knows, and the shops were also taken care of. With the town all done, I finished off the mines just outside and then calling it a day. Back on the task at hand, I make my way to the lone inn in the middle of nowhere and decided to leave no witnesses. I blasted away at everyone inside. Once that was done, I went down into the basement and wiped out the gourmet, taking the title for myself. Once I hid the body, I returned to the sanctuary to start hopefully the final phase of my plan. Back inside Solitude, I entered the kitchen and donned a chef's hat. Now I'm looking even more spiffing. I put in the good ingredients and kept the jarn root for myself. The food is taken to the Emperor's chambers and everyone digs in. They loved it. Knew I was a great chef. Afterwards, I just gassed everyone in the room. I stole the false Emperor's clothes and made my escape. Anticipating an ambush, I laid out a poison rune. A guard walks over the trap and died before Maro could make his speech of, "Ha ha ha, you fell into my trap." Nah, you fall into my trap. With that all done, the sanctuary was on fire because Orpheolus agents were raiding, not me. Seems we have a rat. Well, the agent saved some of purification. I saved Nazir and re-embraced the Night Mother. After that was done, I awakened and find out Astrid sold us out, so I gassed her to Sithis. With this all done, now we can go after the true Emperor. When I got to Solitude, I had a few guards attack me and my persuasion did nothing and they all still attacked me. So I killed everyone at the docks, including Maro. Once the docks were clear, I swam through the waters onto the boat. On the ship, instead of being sneaky, I cleared out the entire ship of its crew members, saving the Emperor for last. In the Emperor's chambers, I couldn't pickpocket him, so I laid him out one final gas trap, killing off the Empire for good. I had to set him on the table, and afterwards I killed him on and returned to Vollenrud, got my 20,000 gold, and soon to be no more merchants left in Skyrim. I returned to Dawnstar Sanctuary, and I informed the Nazir that the deeds are done. We are 20,000 septims richer, and I finished off the final quest lines beside the finale. So I guess at this point there is nothing left to do but to gas out Nazir. I erased Babette, so that is everything save for the finale, but there is one last thing that needs to be done as I walk outside with the fresh air in my face. Time to clean up Skyrim. First stop on my grand cleanup tour is Winterhold. I started at the college, set everyone to unessential, and started at Muriel. Once she fell, I killed off the headmaster, then the other important characters. Eventually, everyone fled to the bridge where I could pick them off one by one. I used Colette's School of Magic against her, and I chased the last couple members into Winterhold proper. I guess I gassed out the guards. The last members of the college I know was Jazaro. Take that, you smug cat. Oh yeah, I returned inside and killed Enthir and then Arcano. If you like the Orph so much, he can be cremated underneath it. Then Urag was next, but he was always essential, so I just erased him. That was the College of Winterhold exterminated. After that, I entered the Jarl's house and killed the leader of the town. I mean, they're all gonna die anyways, the Eye of Magnus is left unattended. With the Jarl's long house done, I cleared out the shops and the bar, and eventually everyone in Winterhold was cast to the void. That is now 4 cities wiped out and 3 factions wiped off the map. Next up on my rampage was Winterhold. Since I had already done some purging before, it wasn't a very long trip. I started in the streets in the Grey Quarter, wiping out all the Dunmer population. Then again, with the Stormcloaks in charge of Skyrim for a minute, they aren't going to have an easy time. Once the shops were cleared out, I cleared out the last of Candlehearth Hall, and it was a bloodbath to say the least. Last up before the palace was the rich people, and they ate poison cake. The Shadow Shields were already cleared out, and some of those houses I've never seen the interior before, and they do have pretty comfy homes. Too bad no one's going to be living in them pretty soon. A little bit of cleanup in the place was done. Next up on my circle was Kynes Grove, but they were already dead, so yay. After that was Shor's Stone became Shor's Bones. With this all done, the next major city is Riften. Riften was a densely populated center, so I didn't need as many poison runes. Maul got mauled, and I started up with the shops. Sure, the Thieves Guild hates me now, but they won't be for much longer. Sapphire is now red, the Bee and Barb had a wasp infestation, and everyone was wiped out there. I blasted away at the markets, and I found Maven Blackbriar. She got what she deserves. Once the streets were cleared, I went into many establishments to check off stragglers. With them all done, I cleared out the Mistveil Keep. It was dirty to say the least, a lot of corpses on the floor, but eventually the throne was mine. All that was left in Riften was the Thieves Guild. Yeah, they really don't like me or my skeever friends. First to go was Mercer, and the Shadows took him. The rest of the interior of the guild went by pretty quickly. In the Ragged Flagon, it was very ragged to say the least. At least Brynjolf, Delvin, and Vex had a lovely final dinner together. With the Rift in the Rift, the next stop is Riverwood. As for Riverwood, I had already killed everyone in town before, though it is always nice to take out Sven. And ironically, Fondle was next to go. Once the streets were taken care of, the inn was next, and took out Roloff of Riverwoods. Rest of the town went by pretty quickly, all things considered. I got the Golden Claw quest completed at last before I could take it back, and the shop keeps lives. With this all done, another settlement has been taken care of. The penultimate major settlement is Falkreath. You know, the town having a morbid obsession with death is very fitting. I killed the courier so he no longer has messages for me. The inn was a quick clean out, and I made a big circle around town. The cemetery didn't require any new burials at least. The last place in town was the Jarl's quarters. The Sun Killer was killed, and the Jarl didn't last that much longer, and I threw him in the fire to keep the place warm. After this, it was just a few small towns left. Borokstead became Rorikstead, Karlsbagen was destroyed again, and Dragon's Bridge became Dragon's Food. Well, Buzzer Food, really. That was basically all the smaller settlements and only a few large ones left. Next up was Solitude. It was more blasting as usual. I started in the shopping district, going after all the outside vendors first and foremost before I went inside into the interior shops. There wasn't much to go on for the shops. I went in, blasted a few poison runes, then walked out. Castle Dower was already taken care of, so I went into the residential section next. Not many people were home since they're all outside, and yeah, they already were wiped out. After that was the Bard's College. They won't be singing for much longer. With them taken care of, the last stop was the Blue Palace. Since I had completed the Civil War, all the former Jarls were already here. I blasted Elisif off the planet, and all the Jarls came upstairs. I had to remove everyone's essential status, but that's not here or there. Irileth eventually died in the ruckus, and a couple more Jarls too. Balgriff was here and he was disposed of. After a while, all the former Jarls were former indeed. I guess with this all done, all that was left was Whiterun, but a few unfinished business to attend to first. First on my agenda is to take care of Delphine. It was nice to take her out. Once she and Esbern died, I threw her off the mountain. Next up was the Greybeards. They took a long time to die because low level 100 to level 150. Just needed a few skeevers, but they all kneeled over. One of the Greybeards I even threw off the mountain. I guess with this all done, all that was left was Whiterun. Inside Whiterun, I just blasted as usual. In the first place wiped out was the blacksmith. After that, I gave Nazim his just desserts. I took out all the shops, wiped out the inn including Sam, so I guess that's another Daedric quest failed. And I guess I can add a Daedric prince to my death counter. After that, I ran to the Cloud District to send the poor fools to another Cloud District. Before hitting up the final keep, I remembered at long last to finish off the companions. Since there was just one major member left, finishing off the companions was nice and simple. Once the rest of the furries were reunited in the hunting grounds, I entered Dragon's Reach for the final bout. I blasted at everyone including Farngar, and once the lower floors were all hit up, I slain the new Jarl and all his companions. With Skyrim all wiped out, and any stragglers were definitely going to be annihilated thanks to the Eye of Magnus being left unattended, I took my dragon friend and departed to the last to the endgame. For Skuldolphin, I pulled out my Sunfire for the first time in a very, very long time and blasted my way through the Draugr. For the insides, the Draugr weren't much of concern, so I just blasted my way through the place. For the second half of the interior, more blasting, more stun, and destroyed the Draugr Overlord at the end. Back outside in the fresh air, I blasted Nakir out of existence, then the Harbinger of Death entered the afterlife. Inside Sovngarde, not even the spirits are safe from my rampage. The first person I saw is Ulfrek, who I re-killed again, and found Gunnar soon after, and he died again. Along the pathway, the High King was killed by me. After I finished my encircling, I found Rike, who I killed once again. And lastly, I found Kodlak, wandering lost into a rock. With him dealt with again, I blasted at soon. What hope does he have against a fellow immortal? Inside the Hall of Valor, sadly I can't blast everyone here, otherwise there'd be a lot of ghost bloods in my hand. Well, after getting my carrying buddies to take on Alduin, much like my problem with other dragons, I can't harm dragons because they're immune to poison runes and sunfire. Well, for the first part of the fight, I thought my allies were able to handle themselves. Well, I guess not, and even trying to heal them they kept falling, so I brought Soon into the fight. Well, it took a bit, but eventually the worm fell. I tried everything I had to finish him off for good. From the rune to the master level spells, everything I had, but I guess Alduin cannot be harmed at all by any healing spells for the final blow. I punched Alduin in the snoot, telling him bad dragon, and proved that no, you cannot beat Skyrim with only restoration. In anger I made the immortals mortal, and when they were congratulating me they all died in unison. And it turns out Soon cannot be harmed or die at this point, so that's that. Well, with the run done, can I say April Fools? This was an idea I had in the back of my mind for a long while, and I thought it was fun to tackle. Yeah, this run was super long. Maybe someday I might decide to do another Kill 'Em All run, this time with the proper mods. Just whenever I finally get around to using mods properly, I don't know. Well, with this all done, I'm still alive. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you give a like if you enjoyed my masochism, subscribe for more challenge runs. This has been Orpheolus, and see you all in the next one.